Hi. So WWDC 21 has just been announced. It's going to be on June 7 to June 11. And it's going to be really exciting. There's going to be a lot of updates to the different APIs and SwiftUI and also the different iOS. I believe we're in 15 now. And the purpose of this video is really to focus on the part about the student challenge. So every single year, as a student, you can apply and try to win a scholarship with Apple. Normally, if it's not virtual, you would be going and flying to Cupertino and then or San Jose, and then that's where you're going to be participating in their WWDC. But in this case, things have changed a little bit, so it's going to be virtual. You're going to receive a lot of help and online help, as well as really cool jacket and pins. I don't know what else, but that's typically what you get when you participate in these events. I want to take a look at the SwiftUI, the Swift Design Challenge here, and help people in terms of what you need to do, right? What are the requirements? What are the tools that you can use? And also help you on a technical level on how to get started in those things. First of all, if you go to the WWDC website, you're going to find the Swift Student Challenge, and you're going to find the requirements. You have to be 13 years and older. You have to be registered with Apple, have an Apple developer account, which is free, and you have to be part of some sort of an institution, school, and otherwise. And then for the requirements, so the technical aspect, let me just make this a little bit smaller. So from a technical aspect, you have to build your Swift playground. So what is this? And this is where I'm going to explain how to do it. First of all, a Swift playground is a project that you can create from your iPad app. It's called a Swift Playground. You can create from a new template, and I'm going to get there very soon. And then you can create an experience. You can create a UI, you can create a game, you can create some sort of a interactive experience. And you can also do that from the Xcode or the macOS app called Swift Playgrounds. Here, they're asking for a 3-minute experience maximum, and you can use the iPad version, the macOS version, the Xcode 12 version. It has to be in English, and the zip file has to be maximum 25 megabits. So what this means is that you can't include like really heavy movies and images and stuff like that. And at the end of it, you have to apply and tell about yourself and what is the goal of the project. So with this said, I can't show you on the iPad. If you go to the App Store, you can just download it there. It's really easy. But otherwise, you can also go to the App Store on your Mac. So you're going to search for Swift Playground, and you're going to be downloading Swift Playgrounds from your Mac. And this is exactly the same experience as on the iPad. So we're going to open that, and let me just close this first. And you're going to have an app that looks like this. So you have a bunch of projects, and then you have more playgrounds. This is where you would be starting from any of these templates, including the blank one, but also some of the presets such as shapes, graphing, and some of the games that they have created. On top of that, I would say that if you're not sure what to create, you can always go to this really awesome resource on YouTube. And here you're going to see a lot of these student challenge submissions from the year earlier, so in 2020. And some of the, or I think all of them has basically won the scholarship. So these are really good inspirations as to what you should be creating from a creative perspective. So I'm going to be sharing this in the description below. And by the way, if you enjoy this kind of content, please give a thumbs up and subscribe. I'm going to try to create more of these so that if it's helpful. So let's go back here. And another thing I want to point out is that Swift Playground was created when Swift was around and before SwiftUI. And it's only recently that they started supporting SwiftUI. And in fact, there's also another video that I want to share with you. It's from the WWDC, where they show you how to create Swift Playground using SwiftUI. And if you have taken a lot of resources from SwiftUI by example of my courses and a lot of courses and tutorials on the internet, you know how to use SwiftUI. It's really easy. It's much easier than normal Swift or UI kit. And I believe that this is where I'm going to try to help you with this kind of content. So this is a really awesome tutorial. I'm going to be sharing the link to this tutorial. But otherwise, let's get started. We're going to start with Swift and using one of their templates. Let's start with shape. This is the most basic one. You're going to create a new template, and it's going to create this template right here. I'm going to open it, and this is what we have so far. Okay, when you have, this is your menu on the left side, these are the different files, the different screens, if you will, and it's going to take a little bit of time, but otherwise, after it's finished loading, I'm going to click run the code, and I'm going to see what this code is creating. So it explained to you what each lines of code is essentially doing here, and I think that's really important to understand that it's really not that complicated. If you go line by line, coding is essentially just telling the computer what to do by writing a bunch of words. And that's exactly what we're doing here. So here we're creating a label that says Hello World with this color, with this font, and we're placing that to the scene. Okay, and this is UI kit. This is normal Swift. This is not SwiftUI. I'm going to show you how to do it in SwiftUI later, but let's go through some of the sample code that we have in front of us. We have the polygon, we have the rectangle, we have the circle, the line, and then an emoji using a graphic, and then some custom shape. So this is really cool. Let's take a look at some other things, such as touches and animation. Here, from reading this code, you can see that we have a circle, and these shapes are interactive now. So by using the set handler, you can see that we can rotate it. We can also change the color. And if you spend some time reading through the code, and you're going to be able to guess what's going on here. And I think that's the part that is really exciting, is to learn all of these things. And then here you have your original source code for each of these demos, and sometimes you have more files than the actual page itself, and so that you can include them into your code. So let's close this one, and let's maybe try another one. Let's see if I can find, if I remember correctly, there was one called rock, paper, scissors in a template. Or you have a lot of templates from the community, and we can search through that. But there's one called rock, paper, scissors, and I think this is a really good example of what you can create for the WWDC. If I run, this is essentially a game of rock, paper, scissors, and I'm going to go to sample games. So I'm going to run the code. And you can see all of this code here is creating this game. So this is definitely more complex for those who have more experience. Again, we start from the basic shapes at the beginning, and then we got into the touches and animations. And then now we can get into the more kind of complex stuff. So like creating a game, like an experience. And this is kind of like what they're going to be expecting from you, is to create some sort of a game or an experience. It can be like an interactive book, or something fun, or even a UI, as long as you can explain what's happening. I don't know, you can be animating a plane or a mountain, or you can be showing how to do, I don't know, using AI or machine learning, or for those who are more experienced with this type of stuff. But you can see that from here they have the sample code for this game, and it's really fun. Again, you can run this on your iPad. So a lot of these things are explained, and there's definitely going to be a lot of studying. But otherwise, me personally, my area of expertise is not game, but more creating apps. So in terms of creating apps, I love to use SwiftUI, and let's learn how to do exactly that. So first of all, I'm gonna create a new blank project, okay? And this is what I have so far. So the first thing we want to do, if you want to make use of SwiftUI, is to import SwiftUI. Secondly, you want to import playground support. And thirdly, you want to run that live. If you want the code from this on Google, you can search for SwiftUI Playground. And there's a really cool tutorial by Hacking with Swift where they give you like a basic template for this, so you can just copy and paste this code. But otherwise, you have playground page. So when you do that in Swift Playground, by the way, it has the auto completion here. And then, if I remember, is current. And then set live. And then you will be including your SwiftUI view. But let's create a SwiftUI view first. So it's going to be struct preview of type view. And then we're going to declare the body. So var body some view. And then we can create, let's say, a circle. So with this view that we just created, we can now include that as part of the preview for the playground. So preview parentheses. And now you can click on run code. And if you do that, then there you go. This is your SwiftUI, and you can run that in your playground file. And I think that's really awesome. So let's learn some basic SwiftUI. By the way, you can create animations, you can create some interactions as well. So if you want to do that, first of all, let's do some basic stuff. So using a shape, you can use a fill and then set the color to blue, for example. And you can do Command R to run, and it's going to change the color. So really simple. I love SwiftUI for its simplicity. Now we are going to make it more interactive. So we can do something like untap gesture, and then we're going to change the state. But first of all, we have to declare our state so that we can animate. It's going to be state var show is equal to false by default. And then when we tap on this circle, we're going to do show dot toggle parentheses. So now when I tap on this, it's going to change the state. But if I want to animate it, I'm going to have to switch the state. So show question mark. If show is equal to true, let's say I'm going to set to color.red. Otherwise, it's going to be color.blue by default. Now I'm going to run the code, and I'm going to tap on it. So it might take a little bit of time for you to like show the result. It's not perfect, but you have to see the numbers here. So here it says 2 times. When I tap again, it shows that it's running. So what this means is that it's running your line of code and the number of times that it's running those lines of code. In this case, we don't have a transition. It is changing using a tap gesture. If you want to set the animation, you can set with animation. Whoops, with animation. I can't type right now. And parentheses, we're going to use one of the preset animation. Let's say ease out, curly braces, and I'm going to put my show.toggle inside the curly braces. And so I'm going to run my code. Just make sure that you can see that the number of times it's been run. It's not instant, so you might have to wait a little bit for that to start taking effect. All right, so now it's working. So you see that there's a bit of transition, and you can also change, let's say, the frame size. So I'm going to set frame width to 300, height to 300, and if I run this, it's going to change the size of my circle to 300 by 300. And if I want to animate it, I can set show to 400, otherwise 300. And the same for the height, 400, otherwise 300. So let's run it again, give it some time, and wait for the numbers to come in so that we can see what's going on. There you go. We have our animation. Got to be patient a little bit here. And yeah, there you go. So on a basic level, this is how you use SwiftUI, how you can animate, how you can create interactions. Of course, you can do so much more. If you follow courses about SwiftUI, tutorials, there's so many videos about these techniques that's going to take your game or app that you're going to be presenting for the WWDC Student Challenge, and you can create something really cool. If you want to do this from Xcode, which you can guess it's a lot better experience than what you're doing here in a Playground. Of course, Playground is cool because you can do that on your iPad, and it's very like friendly. Xcode, on the other hand, you have to go to the website, you have to go to the apps, you have to create a developer account and all that stuff, which of course eventually you have to do if you want to submit your project. As you get more comfortable with SwiftUI and some of the sample code, this is where you need to be. You want to create a new project and you want to create a SwiftUI project. So in this case, I can create an iOS app, and I'm going to set my project, and I'm going to save that. Make sure to set it to SwiftUI, and I'm going to save that. So when you have that using Xcode, it's going to be a lot friendlier, or at least not necessarily friendlier, but easier to see what's going on. It's a lot more interactive and fully supported versus on the iPad and on Swift Playground. It feels a lot more limited and more friendly for beginners. This is how you would do it. It's going to take maybe a minute or two for it to load at first, and we're going to be patient here. But you can see that we start with the text here, and of course you can set like the font, or you can set to large title. So let me find a project that I have created in one of my tutorials. It's called Placeholder. What is fun about this is that I can essentially copy and paste one of the SwiftUI interfaces that I have created so far. And let me just minimize this one. So it's called Card View, and I can just put that inside a Z stack, and I'm gonna put my card view parentheses. So let me just set this to an iPhone 11 Pro and resume this. And so the Z stack allows you to, overlay multiple views in a three-dimensional way so that one is on top of the other. Again, all of these concepts are explained. So now I have my card view. This is still building. Let me just put a background while we're waiting. So I'm gonna set color.blue as a background. Now we're gonna make sure that the image here works, but otherwise I'm just gonna set it to a simple color.blue. So the problem was that the UI was not able to find the image. So now that I have my UI here, and I have my Z stack with a background that is blue, I have my card view, and let me just make it to full screen so that it's not taking, it's also taking the safe area. So I'm gonna set ignore safe area. So I have my background that is blue, I have my interface here, and I can set the animation. So let's say we're gonna set on tap gesture again, and we're gonna set our state. Show is equal to false by default, and I'm gonna toggle the state. Then just the same way, we're gonna change the size when we're gonna be tapping on this card right here. First of all, I'm gonna set the instead of setting the frame size, I'm going to use one of the effects, so the modifiers. And here, if you want to see a list of all the controls and the things that you can do in SwiftUI, you can have this little plus button where you have your insert menu and you can find the buttons, the calendar, the date picker, and all that stuff. The modifiers, in this case, I want to use a modifier on the card view, which is going to allow me to animate it using, let's say, a scale transformation or a rotation transformation. So I'm going to use scale, and here it says scale effect, and I can set, let's say, to 1.2. And if I do that, you can see that my UI is scaled to 1.2 times. If I want to set the animation, I'm going to set to show question mark 1.2, otherwise set it to 1. So by default, it's going to be 1. And when I tap on it, and you're going to click on play, so you can see it's doing the transition. A lot of this stuff is a lot more interactive when you do it in Xcode. So this is made for development, right? On the iPad, it's definitely not as interactive as what you do on Xcode. So as you get more comfortable, you will want to move to Xcode and become eventually an iOS developer, hopefully. And so now we're going to do the same thing with animation. We're going to do with animation and dot, let's say, spring. And we're going to put show inside this. And so when we tap, we have this beautiful animation. Of course, we can also change the values of our animation. We have beautiful auto completion. So I'm going to set to 0.5, and the blend duration, you can just remove it. So now you see that it's more bouncy, and I can even set it to super bouncy like this, or to even bounce more like springy. And you can see it's really fun. So all of this stuff can be moved to your Swift Playground file. So let me just copy the Z stack. Actually, let me copy the whole thing, and I'm gonna bring that code to my Swift Playground here and paste that right here. And of course, it's going to be missing some stuff. For example, the name is different. I'm gonna put it back to preview so that it's being referenced here. And furthermore, I'm gonna need to bring this card UI here, so call card view, and I'm gonna put that so that it's available for that to be used here. So now if I run my code, it should be doing the same. So we have a bit of a problem with the font color, but it works exactly the same way, except that it's not quite as interactive, and I'm not sure why I'm getting a bit of an issue here. So we do have a bit of an issue. I'm not sure what this issue here, but I might come back to that and maybe put that in the description. But this is what we can do, and the code definitely works, but I think it's just the animation is not fully supported or something like that. I think this is going to require a little bit of debugging and a little bit of playing around, but I just wanted to show you that it is possible to use exactly the same views that you have in your SwiftUI code and from Xcode to the iPad. Now, another thing you can do, and I think this is really interesting as well, is that you can create a new playground file. And I'm going to create a blank playground. So this is doing the same thing as the iPad way, except that you're doing it in Xcode, and you're using what we call Swift Playground in Xcode. So let me just use exactly all the same code. So Command A to select everything and Command C to copy. And then I'm going to paste all of this stuff to my playground file. So now I'm going to click on play, and I'm also going to automatically, so let me just click on this and automatically run. So long press it, and we have the preview right here. So there's definitely a little bit of an issue with the sizing. You're gonna need to adjust some of that. So maybe I can set the frame to, I don't know, 600 by height of 600. Okay, so this is working fine. And let's make sure that it does work. So you can see in your Xcode Swift Playground project, and again, you have to click on New and File, sorry, and Playground. And so you're gonna have these resources, and you're gonna be able to do that inside your Xcode instead of inside the Playgrounds app, which may feel a little bit more limited, okay? And otherwise, you can always create a new Xcode project, like a full app, like what I just shown you, and just use the live preview, and you can transfer your code around from the SwiftUI project to the Swift Playground in Xcode to the Swift Playgrounds app, both on the Mac and on the iPad. So the same code all applies. And there's a lot of stuff in between that I'm not explaining, but this is for you to figure it out. I think that's not the point of this video. I just wanted to guide you through the process of creating your own project and what to do with it. And I hope you're gonna have fun. So once you have this done, you can save it. Okay, and I believe that I have saved this somewhere. And once you have the playground file saved, you're going to be able to move that file. Let me just make sure. I don't know why it's not. So I'm going to save this. I believe it's saved somewhere. Let me just make sure that I save it in the right place. Okay, it's saved to autosave information. I don't know why I did that. But let me create another one and just my new playground and save this to download. So I skipped this step and I'm just retracing myself because I couldn't find the file. Let me just copy the code, okay, and paste the code right here. I'm going to save the file. And if I save the file, I'm going to be able to see that file right here. It says my new playground. And then I can just drag and drop that file into my iPad, my playground app. Either on the iPad, you can do AirDrop to your iPad and you're going to be able to open it. And otherwise, you can do that from your Mac using the Swift Playgrounds. And there you go, you have your UI right here. So yeah, I hope you find this useful. Definitely read a little bit more. I didn't definitely cover everything. One thing that is super useful is looking at some of these projects right here, some of the templates that you can find. And yeah, have fun. I hope you find this interesting. And yeah, please give us a like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Have a nice day, everyone. Bye-bye.